Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're setting the stage for an incredible story of survival, tactics, and just sheer human ingenuity. Today, we're deconstructing one of the most fascinating underdog legends in all of military history. We're going to look at how a humble farmer used his environment, a deep knowledge of his craft, and meticulous preparation to become literally a phantom in the snow.
I want to start by throwing a staggering number right at you. 505. Just take a second to let that sink in. According to some sources, that is the number of confirmed kills attributed to a single man during a brutal winter conflict that lasted just over 3 months. And you know, if you dig into the historical discussions, some sources claim he even racked up 45 kills in a single day. It's a number that almost defies belief, and it immediately sparks some intense curiosity.
And that brings us to the core question that constantly fuels fierce debates on forums like Reddit. Who exactly is the deadliest sniper in World War II? Like, how could one individual fighting in sub-zero temperatures possibly achieve this? So today, we're going to break down the mechanics of this legend, looking purely at the tactics, the technology, and the extreme environment that made it all possible.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the legend of SimoHäyhä.
Right, so when you look at the discussion surrounding his record, you'll inevitably find this massive debate between self-reported figures and official military documentation. The famous number of 505 kills is actually derived from his private memoirs, which, interestingly enough, were only discovered in 2017. However, his unit command officially claimed roughly 219 kills with a rifle and a similar number with a submachine gun. The truth is, verifying exact numbers amidst the total, absolute chaos of a war zone is incredibly difficult. And that leaves historians and military enthusiasts constantly debating the facts versus the folklore. But hey, regardless of the exact number, everyone absolutely agrees on one thing: he was devastatingly effective.
Moving right along to Section 2, high-tech meets low-tech.
To truly understand how all of this was even possible, we really have to look at the macro-level disparity between the two nations fighting this war. We're looking at a classic David and Goliath scenario here. On one side, you've got Goliath, the Soviet Union. By the late 1930s, Joseph Stalin's 5-year plans had rapidly transformed the Soviet Union into this massive industrial power. They prioritized heavy industries, leading to the production of just vast numbers of tanks, aircraft, and modern artillery. The Soviet Red Army was the largest, most technologically advanced military force on the planet. And on the other side, you have Finland. Their economy was heavily reliant on lumber and agriculture. The Great Depression had forced Finnish farmers to focus on internal consumption just to prevent famine. That left almost zero public funds to modernize their military. So when the Winter War broke out, Finland's comparatively tiny army was severely under-equipped.
When you picture the sheer visual contrast of this conflict, it's wild. On one hand, you have the heavily mechanized Soviet forces, complete with massive tanks rolling through the snowy landscapes. On the other hand, you have the Finnish troops. They had almost no modern armor. Instead, they relied on pure mobility, navigating the dense forests on skis and dressed head to toe in white camouflage. I mean, on paper, it looked like an impossible mismatch. Which brings us to Section 3, the Winter War advantage. So how did Finland survive this massive mismatch? Well, what they lacked in armor, they made up for by turning their massive disadvantages into deadly tactical advantages. See, the Soviet military doctrine relied on mobile mechanized warfare, but the dense, nearly impenetrable wilderness of northern Finland had very few passable roads. This basically forced the Soviets into these long, single-file columns. The Finns then used highly mobile hit-and-run ski tactics to strike the front and rear of these columns, completely trapping them. They called this Madi tactics, which is a Finnish word for a cord of firewood. Just like chopping wood, they'd slice the trapped Soviet columns into smaller and smaller isolated pieces, completely neutralizing the Soviets' numerical and technological superiority.
Furthermore, the winter of 1939 was one of the absolute coldest in recorded history, with temperatures plummeting to -40 degrees. The high-tech machinery of the Soviets literally froze and failed in these conditions. The Finns, however, weaponized this harsh climate. Because they were fighting for their very national survival, all segments of Finnish society completely united. This immense unity of purpose, combined with a deep, deep knowledge of how to survive in their own brutal environment, formed an impenetrable natural defense.
Let's look at Section 4, a hunter's deadly toolkit.
Okay, let's zoom back in on the focal point of our explainer, SimoHäyhä himself. Before the war, Simo was a humble farmer and a fox hunter. Now, foxes are small, timid, nimble, and very, very hard to catch. Hunting them taught him immense patience, how to read weather patterns, and crucial engagement distances. When war came, his weapon of choice was a Finnish-engineered Mosin M28/30 with a heavy, free-floated barrel. And, this is incredible, he chose to use standard iron sights rather than a telescopic scope. You might be wondering, why? Well, because a scope can catch the sunlight and create a glare that gives away your position. Plus, using iron sights meant he could keep his head much lower to the ground, presenting a far smaller target to the enemy. He was also armed with a Suomi KP-31 submachine gun for close encounters.
Now, what's really interesting about his approach is his incredibly meticulous, low-tech preparation to become perfectly invisible. Long before dawn, he'd hike out and dig a fortified snow bunker. Then, he would actually pour water over the snow right in front of his rifle barrel. This froze the snow solid, meaning that when he fired, there wouldn't be a puff of snowy dust to give away his position. Genius, right? He layered up heavily to survive the negative 40-degree cold, wearing a stark white overcoat to blend in. He even went as far as wrapping the barrel of his rifle in ordinary white medical gauze to camouflage the dark metal. He was just an absolute master of cover and concealment.
Section 5. Beyond the Sniper's Nest.
It's super easy to picture Simo as this lone wolf, just sitting passively in a snowdrift for months on end. But he was actually highly active. His commanding officers quickly recognized his immense value, and they routinely relied on him for complex missions. Simo would cut enemy communication lines, perform critical reconnaissance to gather intelligence, and he'd even lead frontline assaults. He was known for being out in front of his comrades, not hiding behind them. When he was tasked with counter-sniping, his average engagement distance was incredibly close, around 150 meters. And unlike what you see in the movies, he never aimed for the head. He always pragmatically aimed for center mass to ensure he actually hit his target.
And finally, Section 6. The Man Behind the Myth. As we look at the climax of his service, the debate over his exact numbers really often ignores the reality of where he fought. The Kola River front was under constant, massive attack by Soviet forces. By March of 1940, the Soviet onslaught had reached its absolute peak. In that kind of chaotic, relentless environment, dispatching an officer to formally confirm a kill by checking a fallen enemy was simply logistically impossible. They had neither the manpower nor the time to do it. So the crucial point is perfectly captured by this insight from a historical discussion board. Whether the exact mathematically perfect number is 50, 250, or 505 doesn't actually change history. What really matters is his undeniable effectiveness and his role as a heroic figure for a nation literally fighting for its life. The raw numbers pale in comparison to his symbolic impact and his absolute mastery over his environment. His time in combat actually came to an abrupt end on March 6, 1940, when he was struck in the jaw by an exploding bullet. He required multiple surgeries, and just like that, his war was over. But instead of chasing fame or writing a book, this quiet, humble man simply returned to his farm. He rarely gave interviews, and he never bragged. He just lived quietly until the age of 96, leaving behind a massive legacy of perseverance through overwhelming adversity.
And that brings us to a fascinating question to leave you with today. We've seen how a single man with a basic rifle, 0 scopes, and a brilliant understanding of nature could paralyze a high-tech mechanized army. So look at warfare today. Has modern technology, with thermal imaging, drones, and satellites, made legends like SimoHäyhä entirely obsolete? Or will immense human skill, patience, and sheer ingenuity always find a way to outwit the machine? It is a really profound thought to chew on. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.